Hey everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what? Making sure that the good stuff doesn't go to your head and the bad stuff doesn't go to your heart. My special guest today is the John Copeland. He leads the cultural tourism efforts at the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau through strategic development and implementation of cultural tourism programs that will expand global awareness of Miami's arts and culture assets. Previous work has included service with the Adrian Arts Center for the Performing Arts of Miami-Dade County, which is how I have the pleasure of meeting this fine gentleman. The Miami-Dade County Department of Cultural Affairs, the Arts and Business Council of Americans for the Arts, Youth Orchestra of Palm Beach County, and the Kravis Center for the Performing Arts in West Palm Beach. John has also worked in public education as director of bands at Fort Valley Middle School in Fort Valley, Georgia, and he is a graduate of Georgia College and State University with a Bachelor's of Arts in Music Education, and definitely a credit to that institution. With a strong personal interest in serving the arts community, John volunteers as a board member for the Florida Cultural Alliance, the Miami Music Project, and the Arts and Business Council of Miami. That's it. I thought you were like on a lot more boards than that, but maybe not. I'm trying to make you more busy. Okay. John, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks for inviting me. This is amazing. I'm so proud of you. I mean, it's been, we've known each other for, coming up on 10 years. I was looking the other day. Yeah, it's just been, what a ride.
So many of you all have heard me talk about all the time, like get a mentor, get a coach, get somebody who can take a look and see where you're doing and help guide you. And John may not know it, but he's my mentor. Like I'm proclaiming it. He may not know, but he is that person that I can bounce ideas off of and get some very good clarity and feedback. So some of that I'm going to be sharing. But John, we're not talking about me right now. We're talking about you. So you have worked in arts organizations, nonprofit, you've worked in marketing departments, you've worked in development departments and all these other things. So I am sure that you have been in a place where people have had, they're just open and willing to give you their feedback regarding something that you did. So can you share anything with us in terms of something that was either just like out of the blue, like you had no idea, or something that was just like a really good piece of feedback that you got that it might have hurt, but it was like, oof, I needed that in order to grow. So talk to us.
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? It's just, there's so much there, Nicole. I'm going to have to dig deep for you today.
Okay.
It's fascinating. You think about feedback and what feedback means. And, and naturally feedback is something that a lot of people will ask for, your annual review, that everybody has to complete, your self-evaluation, the 360, all of those sorts of things just, it's like an annual process for you in the workplace.
Right.
But, we know it happens all the time. It happens every day. I mean, and the feedback can take on so many different types of forms and implications, as well as just, different styles of feedback.
Right.
I've historically throughout my career, I've been, the guy that always tries to get along with everyone. And,
yes,
and
I will attest to that.
It's like, I find that, on my career path, it's always about, how can I keep and make the most friends possible wherever I'm at, wherever I'm working. And so in order to do that, I think that at least naturally for me through my career, it has taken on the form of taking constant feedback. And it's not actively asking for feedback, but it's a self-awareness of everything that I do, everything that I say, and what that reaction that comes back to me in the immediate and in the long term.
Yeah.
And I think that just being mindful of that on an everyday just a habitual process of every day, whenever I'm interacting with anyone, it's I'm looking for the feedback. Are they smiling? Are they looking at me? do I get that quick, say what? Or do I get the lean in, like, oh, okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. And, and being aware of that is just, it's so hyper important to, I think, what my success has been, because you're able to quickly read people. And you're able to read them through that feedback of looking in their eyes and seeing their reaction, and then understanding, okay, how can I, be a better colleague to them, be a better mentor, a better, employee, and, and making sure that I'm taking all that feedback in, and then constantly tweaking, constantly adjusting, whether it's my tone of voice, whether it's my phrasing, whether I'm talking too fast or too slow, or they're just not getting it. I mean, it's taking all of that in real time and then processing. And it's just a constant processing. And
I love that, because you are so right. We all know this, that so much of communication is nonverbal. And we all know when we've said something and probably struck a nerve, or kind of, we're like, oh, and then we're like, well, we'll just go wait and see if they say anything. And if they don't, I'm not bringing it up. But I love that you're taking that to the next step, the next level, that if you do see that response or that reaction, you are trying to figure out what caused it, so that you could be better, or can be able to communicate with that person better to get the result that you need, which is going to just end up helping you grow. Love that. So you may not always get that verbal feedback that you are asking for, or even because, sometimes you ask for the feedback and people are like, everything's fine.
Yeah, of course.
Good and well.
And it depends on who you're asking and what your relationship is to that person.
True.
I mean, it's much easier to get honest, quality feedback from somebody at the same level as you, with a colleague that you don't report to and they don't report to you, but you guys are at the same level. And especially those colleagues that may be in a totally different department, and that may be looking at you with fresh eyes, with a different perspective, and even with a different sort of predisposition on your work, on who you are, and on what you do. And that's the feedback that I really love, is being able to, grab a coffee with somebody in a totally different department and chat with them about how things are going, and, and anything that I can do to help them, and anything that, they see in me that, could be improved upon, or I could do better. And especially I found when you start a new job, because, that's when you have your opportunity to make your mark, in those first couple of weeks, talking to people, getting to know them, learning everybody's name right away, and, and figuring out the lay of the land is an important part of that whole feedback process. Because then you learn who you can trust, who you need to, be mindful of, who you need to be extra careful around.
Yeah.
And all of those sorts of sensitivities to the relationship, lay the groundwork for your success within an organization, and within building relationships with your colleagues and coworkers.
Yeah. Seriously, y'all, listen to this man, because he is the guy. And I've had the opportunity to work with John in kind of in different aspects and different ways. And everybody always, it's that whole, like, everybody loves Raymond, but it's really everybody loves John. Like literally.
Yeah.
And his,
I have to buy lots of lunches and coffees to keep everybody happy. Yeah. And I feel like I'm going to owe you after this. A bottle of wine is in your future.
Woohoo! We'll take it.
And, and I can remember several instances, especially me being, a tall white man, in an industry, the arts industry, which is predominantly female dominated. And, and I have to be mindful of that. And I should be mindful of that. And so I catch myself sometimes being, the guy that thinks he's got all the answers and thinks he, knows the best path forward. And I just start trucking down that road. And next thing you know, I've got people looking at me like, yeah, you're just not getting it, are you? And so you need those kind of people that can, they can call you out and help you take a step back and look in the mirror and realize, okay, I need to be more open. I need to be more, a better listener, more understanding, less assertive in that sort of, traditionally male aggressive way that we are, because we are, creatures of our genetics. And
yeah.
that's not always an appropriate, thing to be, especially in the workplace and especially around friends and colleagues,
Yeah.
really around anybody.
That's fascinating, because to hear you say that I have to try to be less assertive, because that is literally opposite of anything any woman has ever said, because we're afraid to speak up. And then if they do speak up, then, they get labeled, other things. But that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and Nicole, honestly, I think that, it's a little bit of the evolution of our times, and we're seeing this across the workplace with female employees, with employees of color, with employees of different diverse backgrounds, whether it's cultural or religious or even diversity in abilities. And so, it's part of being aware and helping to not only level the playing field, but lift up those that have traditionally been marginalized because of those different nuances of who they are. And, and so I find myself in a lot of positions where I could, drive this initiative home and just railroad my way through the meeting and get what I want out of it. But, what's going to be the casualty to that? Who is going to get hurt? Who's going to feel left out? Who's going to feel like they were, not heard or, not valued as part of the process? And so, again, it goes back to my mindset of, I want everybody in the room happy. I want to create win-win-win situations where, everybody leaves a meeting, everybody leaves with a smile on their face and with, a value in their heart that they are contributing. And if I can be, an assistant on that journey, then great. I don't need the credit.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's talk about being a manager, because you've managed all sorts of people, from employees to volunteers to interns to all of that. Have you ever had to have a difficult conversation with somebody that maybe was underperforming and you had to give them that kind of feedback?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've been in the room when that's happened a time or two, especially with the... Yeah. So, Nicole is the manager of the internship program at the Arch Center. Frequently, we have lots of interns of all varying degrees of ability and education and desire and commitment. And inevitably, you're going to get some of those folks in there who, this may not be the place for them. And so, yeah, that conversation can be tricky at times. But it has to come from a place of honesty. It has to come from a place of, commitment to the organization, to the profession, to the work. And if it's coming from that place, then you can deliver it without fear, without trepidation, and hopefully, whoever you're delivering this message to is going to be receptive to that.
Yeah.
Especially if they want to continue to grow and be a better person.
Yeah. And it was funny because actually I hope I get the name right, but we had to give, no, never mind. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to call out somebody's name. And I'm not trying to do that. So never mind. It was just so funny because the person's last name, it was so ironic that the person that we had to give this feedback to, their last name, let's just say it was like perfect. That's not this person's last name, but it was something along the lines of that. Sure. And then it was like, but this person was somebody who kind of needed the most help. And it was just like, how is your name perfect? But we have to talk to you the most about everything that's going on. So yeah, that was fun. That one was fun, man.
Yeah.
When you said that, it just flooded all of these meetings that we had. Man.
Yeah.
Okay. So, And we could totally edit this out. We can totally edit this out later if necessary. But Michael Spring is your mentor, right?
Yes, one of.
One of. Oh, so you see that, guys? You see that? You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? One of. I'm telling you, do not leave this podcast, not necessarily this one, but any of the episodes. Find yourself a mentor or a coach the same way that Michael Jordan and LeBron James and who's the swimmer?
Michael Phelps.
Thank you. Michael Phelps. They are top notch, best in their game. They all had coaches. They did not do it themselves. None of them were like, I'm just going to go out here and do this. No, they were listening to somebody from the outside that could guide them to where they needed to be. Yes, they have the work. Yes, they have the talent. And I know I sound like a broken record, but you just heard like John, like he's running Miami, guys, running Miami. He has multiple mentors. Okay, anyway, I'm back. So, has Michael, and we could totally edit this out. Has he ever given you some type of feedback that made you go, oh?
Of course. I mean, the best mentors do. Do
you want to share any of them? Sure.
Absolutely. Well, and I think this comes from a place of, one of the great things about a mentor is inevitably they're in a position of power, of influence, of authority over you and your career at some point. And so, you're looking up to them with that's an aspirational position or job or career path that you want to take. And so, when you're on that journey with these people, and at the time, I probably would not have called him out and said, you're my mentor. Again, that's a little awkward to go to your boss and say, hey, Mr. Boss Man, will you be my mentor? Because he's like, no, you're my employee. That's it. But what you find is you find yourself emulating a lot of their traits, a lot of their characteristics, a lot of their style, their language, how they talk, how they act, carry themselves. And so you pick up on these things throughout, your time with them. And a lot of it is just instinctual. You just grab it because it feels right. But a lot of times, you can overplay yourself in that role. And I think, one piece of advice that, that Michael always gave me that I've held on to all the time, and this is especially true in Miami, but it's even beyond that. And, and this piece of advice that I always hold on to is whenever you do anything, always try to think that there are people in your life, in your work, in your projects that you're working on that are waiting to be left out. And so in Miami, this happens all the time. But whenever you're putting together a task force, a committee, a working group, be thinking of the people that are waiting to be left out. Those people where if you leave them out, it's going to be, there's going to be hell to pay. It's going to come back to you. They're going to be the ones that pick up the phone and say, oh, I heard you had this meeting. Why wasn't I there? And so it's important, to always thinking about everything you're doing, about making sure you're not leaving the right people out.
Yeah.
There's some people you may want to leave out or need to leave out, but it has to be
say
strategic.
Their name right there. I'll edit it out.
But I find myself, revisiting that time and time again as I'm working with different people across different industries, from different levels of organizations, from, coordinators and assistants to CEOs and board chairs, thinking about, okay, who do I want to make sure I don't leave out of this conversation, of this dialogue or whatever the case may be. And I'm sure you find that as well, managing volunteers. I mean, there are volunteers that you better make sure you don't leave them out because you're going to hear about it. And the price you pay will be greater than if you just invited them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So was there ever like a task force or a meeting or something where you accidentally did that and it was just like, oh, that's what he's talking about?
Of course. Absolutely. And it's happened and it's incredibly embarrassing when you get called out for that. We had we had a working group meeting that we put together not too long ago. And, I had a colleague and she asked me, she said, can I see the invite list? And I said, sure, and this is, a day or two out. And I sent her the invite list and she picks up the phone and gives me a call. And she says, John, says, I'm not seeing enough diversity in this working group. And I'm concerned for you because I feel like there could be some repercussions if you don't further round out the look of the people that are involved in this working group. And, and it's one of those things that, it caught me off guard, but then it was like the slap in the face that I needed. I'm like, yes, you fool, what are you doing? It's like, of course you need to invite more people than, just what's on your list. And so, and she thankfully took me under her wing and worked with me, and we sent out an invite together and expanded the working group to include more people of more diversity. And it wasn't just ethnic diversity, it was, genre diversity, it was bringing in some dance groups, it was bringing in some theater groups so that it's not just visual arts, so that it's not just, one particular genre, but it diversified our group and made it a much richer conversation, a much more productive conversation, as well as I got so many thank yous from other people that I had invited saying, just an amazing group of people you put together for this, thank you for being so inclusive. And so it just, that flag was right there for people to wave saying, hey, I was a part of this, I was included, and I'm, and it just made everybody walk away from the meeting happy, happy, happy. And it was win, win, win. And so, those kinds of missteps are easy to fix, but super hard to repair. The hurdles and the bridges and the roadblocks that would have been put up in front of me had I not pivoted and made that adjustment and increased the participation from the community. It would have cost me down the line, because when I would have come to them, they would have remembered and they would have said, now you invite me. And so it's about being very self-aware of everything you're doing so that you can be as inclusive as possible.
And I love that you were willing to share the list when somebody asked, because I know how I get sometimes. I would have shared it, but I know sometimes I'm like, why are you questioning me? You don't think I could do my job? Da, da, da. I feel my internal attitude come out. I would never share it on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like, sure, you can have the list. And so, number one, it was cool that you shared it. And number two, that you were open to what she had to say for a number of reasons, because that's just going to continue to build the trust that she knows that she can come to you and be like, hey, John, I just want to let you know this. Because if you had responded, be like, okay, thanks, she doesn't know what she's talking about, that could have been the last time she ever wants to tell you anything. And look at what the response was. You ended up getting, such a great response from people who you may have accidentally, like you said, left out. And man, that could have gone really wrong really fast.
Of course, and it's not just me. It's the organization I represent. Yeah. It's the position of the community against our industry. Yeah. And so, the layers are deep and vast, and, and it can even roll into, political issues with, all of a sudden, if an organization gets branded a certain way and makes it into the political discussion and the political landscape, the repercussions could be years in fixing. And so, being mindful of everything and making sure you're not leaving anyone out, and especially those people that are waiting to be left out, is an important thing to keep right up there top of mind.
I love it. That's a nugget I am writing down. Okay. So I have two more questions for you. The first one is, so you've definitely been in the part where you're giving feedback from a manager standpoint and kind of being the head honcho. So, but you also do volunteer a lot. You give a lot of your time. You're on all these different boards. And so have you as a volunteer ever had to give feedback to somewhere where you were volunteering, and how did it go over well? Were they welcome to it? Like, how was it weird and awkward for you to be like, I don't know if I should say this?
Yeah, that's always a tricky position, but you know, it's one of the nuances of the nonprofit organization business model, where you have employees serving an organization that is governed by a board of directors. And the board of directors, 95% of the time, is volunteer. So they are not paid. They are giving their time to help oversee, guide, set strategic direction for the organization based on its mission. And that mission is adopted by the board of directors and the organization as, this is the path that we are going to take to serve the community, because all nonprofits at their core are designed to serve the community. And so inevitably you get into precarious positions with paid employees of that nonprofit organization that may take it upon themselves to want to go in a different direction. And it's incredibly, you know, tricky to tread these waters of giving this kind of feedback. But you know, what I find is you come back to the core, the essence, and you tie it back to the mission. And it's like, what is our true purpose here with this work of this nonprofit organization? And it's, you know, and the work is beyond myself as a volunteer board member. It's beyond the paid employee. It goes to the community we serve. And so many times, you know, I've been in those board meetings with executive directors, and they're proposing an idea that is totally outside the realm of what we're all about. Uh-huh. And yeah, you just kind of have to raise your hand and say, okay, guys, we need to pull it back to the mission. And if we don't want to pull it back to this mission, does that mission need to change? You know, do we need to restructure our organization and think a little bit differently about our community and who we're serving? And the reason why we're all here. And usually those kinds of, you know, proposals of conversation will quickly, you know, squash any of that mission drift that occurs with a nonprofit that's trying to do something beyond what they were initially, you know, intended to do.
I love that, because it's almost like you don't feel like you have to, like you're standing out on your own, but you almost have like the shield of the mission to be like,
of course,
hey, yeah. It's not me, it's the mission.
Yes.
It helps us soften the blow, I think.
It does. It does. Just as a job description will soften the blow on employees that veer out of what they were paid and hired to do. Just as an internship program and manual will be there to guide them into the right direction so that they don't creep outside of that path. And so we all need these guidelines, these rules, these regulations, if you will, to keep us in line so that we can stay focused on the end goal, on the end game. And, you know, it happens all the time throughout everyday life. You know, we see it when we're, you know, there's rules of the road when you get behind the wheel of the car. And some things you can do and some things you can't.
Right.
And, you know, it's up to you to follow the rules or pay the price.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So what is one challenge that you've had to overcome that you are very proud of, or just the accomplishment that you are most proud of thus far in your career? You have a long list, so I am very interested to hear about what this would be.
Oh my gosh. Nicole, this is a hard one. You know, so much of my work, you know, going all the way back to college has just been about, you know, it's been about the arts, and, you know, and it's about bringing the arts into the lives of everybody in our community. And so, you know, I think, you know, morphing from my role at the Arts Center to this role that I'm at now with the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau has really been, you know, one of these sort of you know, late career goals of mine. You know, when I first came to Miami and met the team at the GMCVB, and I was working with them when I was at Cultural Affairs, and realized what they're trying to do. And, to be able to now, close to 17 years later, I came to Miami in 2006 to actually now be in this role and in this position where my job is to encourage anybody that's coming to Miami, that lives in Miami, to have an arts and cultural experience. And that's my job is to get people to our arts organizations, hopefully in droves, spending money at the box office, buying concessions, buying tickets, patronizing, the gift shops. That's what I'm getting to do right now. And, and it's just such a dream job. And, there's only one of me in Miami. And, and if you look around the country, there might be 6 or 7 more of me in major cities. There might be bigger departments, certainly when you look at New York City and Chicago, San Francisco, LA, they will have somebody within their tourism department that's focused on arts and culture. But, to be here in Florida and in Miami in particular, doing this work is just, it's a dream job, and it's something that, I don't take for granted. And I feel very humbled to be in this position, in this role. And the work is immense and the challenges are vast, but, the payoff is just priceless.
Oh, well said. I mean, we could just end right there. That was beautiful. Well said.
Thank you.
Said.
I have it all written down right here.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So this is the new little thing that I'm doing. I have my book here, 3,000 questions about me. So I'm going to ask you, give me a number, 1 to 3,000, and I will ask you the question and you answer it, and then I'll answer it. And if we don't like the question, we can change it because we control it. So what number, 1 to 3,000?
Number 421.
Okay, let's see. Okay, 421.
Uh-oh.
What is the worst thing your parents ever said to you? Do you want to admit that? Do I need to stop the tape now?
No, because I really want to hear what your answer is. Oh my gosh, the worst thing my parents ever said to me. I think it was, so to frame it out a little bit. So, both my parents were musicians all through middle school and high school. I played in the band. I played trombone. I was on this path to, musical stardom. And, and everything was going great and I was loving it. And then I discovered this 4-wheeled device called a skateboard. And back in the late 80s, I became a skate rat. And probably for close to 5 or 6 years of my late teens, early 20s was spent on a skateboard. And to the point that, at one point I quit the marching band and I got a job at the local skate shop and I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to skate and be a skateboarder and a skate punk kid. And I remember my dad telling me, at one point in my life, and he looked at me and he said, that skateboard is the worst thing to ever happen to you. And I'm so disappointed that you would rather be on that skateboard than be in the band. And, and at the time, I was a rebellious teenager. And what did I know? What did I care? I was free and easy. I was, living at home and, just fluttering my life away with all my little skateboard friends. And, and looking back, he was so right. But, he pushed me further away from him by making that comment because he didn't embrace what my passion was at the time.
Yeah.
And, and it took some years to get back, for us to get back together. And thankfully we did. And thankfully I did go on to college and studied music and got a degree in music education and taught band and, and the rest is just history. And so, I look back on those skateboarding days fondly, but I lost some time. I lost years of my life. I let my parents down, and it was a tough road to recover. And so I think a lot of, what's fueled my career has been the fact that, I want to make good. And not only to my parents, but to my local arts community and to my friends and colleagues and to people like you.
Oh, well, I'm grateful to your dad, because I definitely wasn't going to be on a skateboard. If you all were to know this man, I am so, I can't even picture. I cannot picture Skater John. I just can't.
Yeah, I had the whole hair off the side, and yes, exactly. Yeah, the big baggy pants and the, all the bracelets.
What? Oh, I'm in complete and total shock.
Yep. Punk rock music blaring out of the back of my truck. Yeah, that was me for years. Yeah.
Now, I know you're a very influential person in Miami, so is it okay that I keep that in?
Of course, absolutely. Hey, it's part of the history. It's probably part of the most colorful part of John's history, which a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm so honored that you shared that with me. I still can't get over it. I know I need to answer the question, but I'm still trying to picture Skater John. I'm gonna find a picture. I was like, is this what you look like?
I've got some. I'll share them offline.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. I think the worst thing my parents ever said to me, which is a lot better than stuff that they used to say to my poor brother, but this isn't about him, so we're going to leave him out of it. My mom once told me, he's not going to want to marry you anyway, so you might as well don't even listen to him. I was like, wow, Mom. Okay. So note to self, if you are a parent of a college kid and they come home and tell you that the boyfriend that they're dating might want to marry them, even if you don't like it, humor them, listen to them, because I ended up eloping and leaving. And so yeah, we're going to end the episode on that. Yeah, because my mom was like, that's just something guys say to get in bed with you. Okay, Mom.
Hey, what?
Yes. Woo! Okay. So, John, thank you so much for joining me for this. This has been amazing, and the nuggets that you dropped, that knowledge, man, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I encourage anybody who listens to this to go back and listen to it again, because that's stuff that you're not going to hear very often. Things that, a lot of these things, and especially because you hear a lot of personal development, this and that, and you hear that kind of stuff all the time, but the stuff that you dropped here, I've never heard it before, and it's going down in the notebook. Definitely going down in the notebook. So thank you so much for joining us. If people want to find out more about the GMCDD, how can they find you or reach out to you, or give them a fake email? I'm just kidding. How can they reach out to you, John?
We're pretty easy to find. So our website URL is miamiandbeaches.com, and I can be reached at John, John, at gmcdd.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody if you've got questions or want more information. I'm also easy to find on LinkedIn, so friend me on LinkedIn.
Yes, connect. And with that being said, thank you all so much for joining us for another episode of From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what? Not letting the good stuff go to your head and the bad stuff go to your heart. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.